You ever just scrolling through the news and then bam, something just hits you?
Oh, yeah. Definitely happens all the time.
Well, it happened to me yesterday. I was scrolling through and I saw that George Foreman passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, George Foreman, the boxer.
Right? The grill guy.
Yeah, the two-time heavyweight champ, the
Right.
Olympic gold medalist, and yeah, the entrepreneur behind the famous George Foreman grill.
Man, that's a big one.
Yeah, it really is. He died on March 21st, 2025 at the age of 76.
Wow. So recent.
So recent. And in fact, it's so recent, his Wikipedia page is still being updated like crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can practically see the edits happening.
Yeah, like the digital ink drying.
Exactly. And so we're not here to just like look at the headlines,
Right. Dig a little deeper.
Yeah, you pulled together some really interesting sources for us, including Foreman's Wikipedia page, which again is like rapidly changing.
It's a snapshot in time.
A total snapshot in time. And also some YouTube transcripts of him and Muhammad Ali just going back and forth.
Oh, that's fun, yeah.
So our mission today is to really unpack the life and legacy of Big George. Go beyond just like the what everybody knows about him and uncover some really fascinating and perhaps lesser known aspects of his journey. For you, our listener, who likes to get a lot of knowledge quickly but thoroughly, you're going to love this, I think.
Yeah, tons of aha moments coming your way, I think.
Totally, and without overwhelming you. So get ready for a deep dive into the surprising turns and interesting anecdotes that shaped the life of this remarkable man.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so to kick things off, let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
Where and when was George Foreman born?
So George Edward Foreman was born on January 10th, 1949 in Marshall, Texas.
Okay, so not exactly like, a big bustling metropolis.
Right.
But he grew up in Houston, Texas with 6 siblings.
Wow.
A full house.
Yeah, a big family.
Raised by J.D. Foreman, though his biological father was Leroy Moorhead.
Okay.
Now here's where things get interesting.
Okay.
By his own account, young George was a bit of a troublemaker.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, he dropped out of school at 15 and even became a mugger for a time.
What? The George Foreman.
Yeah. Can you imagine like the guy with the charming smile and the lean, mean, fat-reducing grilling machine?
Yeah, right, like America's Dad or something.
I know. Was once out there like relieving people of their belongings.
That's wild.
Total origin story twist, right?
Yeah.
But thankfully at 16, things took a major turn.
Okay.
He saw a Job Corps ad on TV and convinced his mom to let him enroll.
Wow, what a pivotal moment.
Talk about a sliding doors moment, right?
Yeah, totally.
So through Job Corps, he earned his GED, trained as a carpenter and a bricklayer, and eventually, while in Pleasanton, California, he discovered boxing.
Okay.
A supervisor at the Job Corps saw his potential.
Interesting.
Now, fun fact, he actually idolized football player Jim Brown.
Oh, wow, okay.
So we could have had a very different George Foreman story.
Yeah, like a gridiron George Foreman.
Totally.
But the ring called to him.
The ring called to him. So this young man who just a year earlier was, knocking over strangers, he starts knocking out opponents in the ring. He wins his first amateur fight in January 1967.
Wow, what a transformation.
I know, and that was just the start of his really successful amateur career. He wins Golden Gloves titles. He wins the National Boxing Championships heavyweight title in 1968. It's like, this guy was born to box.
He's a natural.
Now get this. Even before the Olympics, he gets to spar with former world heavyweight champion Sonny Liston. This is in July 1968. And Sonny Liston, this guy had a reputation for being one of the scariest dudes in boxing history.
Yeah, super intimidating.
And Foreman later recalled these sparring sessions, and he said, quote, "No doubt the scariest human being I've met in the ring, the only man to make me back up consistently."
Wow, coming from George Foreman, that's saying something.
Right, like the guy who would go on to face Frazier and Ali was like genuinely rattled by Sonny Liston.
That's pretty wild.
And to make things even crazier, Liston used custom-made 22-ounce gloves during these spars.
Oh my goodness.
Can you imagine getting hit with those? Like being hit with a couple of softballs tied to a fist.
Yeah, like a sledgehammer.
Oof. So before the Olympics, his amateur record was 16 wins and 4 losses. By the time he turned pro, it was 22 wins and 4 losses. And then the 1968 Mexico City Olympics arrive, and this is where Big George goes from like promising amateur to global superstar.
Yeah, the Olympics always do that, create stars.
Totally. He wins gold in the heavyweight division, and in the final, he defeats Jonas Sapoulas of the Soviet Union. Now, the Sapoulas was no slouch.
Okay.
He was a 29-year-old veteran with over 220 amateur fights under his belt.
Wow, that's a lot of experience.
Right, like Foreman's facing the Ivan Drago of the amateur boxing world.
Yeah, for sure.
But Foreman wins by TKO in the second round.
Wow.
Aeolipulus was already bleeding in the first round, took a standing 8 count in the second. Foreman was just unstoppable.
Dominating.
And after winning, he walks around the ring with a small U.S. flag bowing to the crowd. It was a moment of pure national pride.
Yeah, it's a classic image.
And here's something I thought was really cool. Foreman considered that gold medal the proudest moment of his entire boxing career, even more so than his world titles.
Wow, that's incredible.
I know it really shows how much representing his country meant to him at that time.
Yeah, the Olympics are special.
So, Olympic hero status achieved. What does a heavyweight with knockout power do next?
We'll go pro, I guess.
Go pro, and that's exactly what Foreman does in 1969, and he doesn't waste any time. He wins 13 fights in that first year alone, with 11 of those being knockouts.
Goodness gracious.
The guy was a human wrecking ball.
Yeah, he was just demolishing people.
Totally, and he keeps that undefeated streak going, and in 1970, the competition steps up a bit. He beats Gregorio Peralta, but Peralta actually showed that Foreman could be vulnerable to a faster opponent who counterpunches and presses the fight.
Interesting, like a weakness is exposed.
Yeah, but Foreman being Foreman, he comes right back with a TKO victory over George Tupelo.
Tough guy.
Yeah, and by 1972, his record is 37 wins, 0 losses, 34 knockouts.
Wow.
It's like, okay, this guy needs a title shot, and he gets it against the undisputed world heavyweight champion Joe Frazier. And get this, Foreman was a 3-1 underdog going into that fight.
Really? I would not have guessed that.
I know. But the Sunshine Showdown, as it was called, in Kingston, Jamaica in 1973, was a demolition. Foreman wins by TKO in the second round.
Brutal.
Down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier. I mean, you can't talk about that fight without hearing Howard Cosell's iconic call. Frazier, who is 29-0 himself, was knocked down 6 times in 2 rounds.
Good night.
It was a statement. There was a new king in town.
Definitely a changing of the guard.
And Foreman defends his title twice after that a very quick first-round knockout of Jose Roman in Tokyo. This was one of the fastest finishes in heavyweight championship history. And then another impressive victory against Ken Norton in Caracas.
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't Norton the one who broke Ali's jaw?
Yeah. Ken Norton was a really tough fighter. And he had broken Muhammad Ali's jaw in a previous fight. And Foreman said of Norton, quote, "Ken was awesome when he got going. I didn't want him to get into the fight." So he knew that Norton was dangerous.
Yeah, he had that respect for him for sure.
And he wins by TKO in the second round in what was called the Caracas Caper.
So he's just cruising through all these contenders.
40 wins, 0 losses, 37 knockouts. It's like, is anyone going to stop this guy?
Right.
And then comes the fight everyone remembers.
The Rumble in the Jungle.
The Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire against Muhammad Ali in 1974.
That was a huge event.
Huge, more than just a boxing match. It was a cultural phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
And there was even some drama before the fight because it got postponed for a month because Foreman got a cut during training.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and Foreman later speculated that this postponement actually benefited Ali, that it disrupted his training and gave Ali extra time to get into Foreman's head a little bit. And Ali definitely used that time to his advantage. He engaged with the locals. He really played up the psychological warfare aspect of the fight.
Yeah, Ali was a master at that.
Oh, yeah. And then the fight itself, Ali unveils the rope-a-dope strategy. He basically just leans on the ropes, lets Foreman punch himself out, and waits for an opportunity. And it was risky. Even Ali admitted later he was out on his feet a couple of times during the fight.
Yeah, it could have backfired for sure.
Totally.
Yep.
But in the 8th round, Ali finds an opening, unleashes a flurry of punches, and Foreman goes down. It's Foreman's first professional loss. And actually, at the time of the stoppage, Ali was ahead on all 3 scorecards.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And afterwards, Foreman kind of downplayed it. He said, quote, "It just wasn't my night." He even suggested that he might have been drugged by his trainer, which is a whole other story.
Wow.
And he never did get that rematch with Ali.
Yeah, that would have been epic.
But that loss really had a huge impact on Foreman.
I bet.
He keeps fighting, but then after a loss to Jimmy Young in 1977, he has this really profound experience in his dressing room.
Okay.
He describes it as a near-death experience, like he was in this really dark, frightening place.
Wow, intense.
Yeah. And it leads him to having a born-again Christian experience. It's this total transformation for him.
Wow.
And he walks away from boxing. He becomes an ordained minister. He dedicates the next 10 years of his life to God and to his congregation at the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ in Houston, where he eventually becomes the pastor.
Right.
She opens a youth center. It's like a complete 180.
Yeah. Talk about a change in direction.
From fearsome heavyweight champ to a man of God.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But wait, there's more.
There was more.
Oh, yeah. In 1987, at 38 years old, Foreman announces he's making a comeback.
What? No way.
And his reasons are pretty straightforward. He needs to raise money for his youth center, which is struggling financially.
Okay, makes sense.
And he also admits he kind of wants a shot at Mike Tyson, who's the undisputed champ at the time.
Oh, yeah, that would have been amazing to see.
I know. Can you imagine?
The headlines would have been crazy.
Foreman versus Tyson. So anyway, he steps into the ring for his first comeback fight, weighing 267 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he definitely looked like he'd been enjoying retirement.
He was enjoying life.
He was enjoying life.
Yeah.
But he gets back into shape, and something really interesting happens. His public persona changes. He goes from this intimidating Big George to this really friendly, jovial guy cracking jokes on talk shows.
Yeah, I remember that he was like America's uncle or something.
Yeah, he even becomes friends with Muhammad Ali.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's like a total image makeover.
Yeah, totally.
And then in 1994, the impossible happens.
Okay.
At 45 years old, Foreman regains the unified WBA, IBF, and lineal heavyweight titles by knocking out the 26-year-old Michael Moore in the 10th round.
Shut up.
Yeah, and he was a huge underdog going into that fight. And to make it even more symbolic, he wore the same red trunks he wore in the Ali fight.
Oh.
It's like he was saying, I'm back.
Yeah.
This victory makes him the oldest world heavyweight champion in history, sets a record for the longest gap between first and second world championships, 20 years, and had the largest age spread between a champion and challenger in 19 years. It was historic.
That's crazy.
It was one for the record books, and after the win, Foreman kneels in prayer in his corner, just this incredibly powerful image.
Yeah, like a scene from a movie.
But his second reign as champion was a little complicated. He's stripped of the WBA title for refusing to fight Tony Tucker, and he relinquishes the IBF title after a controversial majority decision win against Axel Schultz. He refuses an immediate rematch in Germany, but he does retain the lineal heavyweight champion title.
Which
basically means he's considered the man who beat the man, so to speak, the true successor to the championship lineage.
Okay, I got it.
He fights a few more times, including a really controversial loss to Sharon Briggs, and then he hangs up his gloves for good in 1997 at the age of 48. There were talks of a comeback fight against Larry Holmes in 1999 that was going to be called the Birthday Bash.
Oh, that would have been fun.
I know, right? But it fell apart during negotiations. Total bummer. Even after retirement, though, Foreman stays involved in boxing. He becomes a really respected analyst for HBO for 12 years.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He also tries his hand at acting. He stars in a sitcom called George in 1993 where he plays, guess what?
A boxer.
A retired boxer.
Very meta.
I know, right? And get this. In 2022, he appears on The Masked Singer as the Venus flytrap.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Right? What a range. And in 2023, he's an executive producer on the film Big George Foreman, which is about his life.
Makes sense.
But let's be real, for most people, when they hear the name George Foreman, they think of one thing.
The grill.
The grill? The lean, mean, fat-reducing grilling machine.
It's a classic.
A total classic, and the idea came about after his comeback when he really started focusing on healthy eating. He attributed his success to his diet,
Okay.
and apparently a friend suggested he create his own product after years of doing commercials for other brands.
Smart.
Yeah. Foreman even admitted that the first design was ugly, and his wife was using it without him even realizing it.
We didn't even know.
Yeah, it's funny to think about.
Yeah.
But that ugly grill went on to sell over 100 million units worldwide as of 2009.
Wow, that's incredible.
A kitchen staple, and in 1999, he sells the commercial rights to the grill for $138 million. By 2011, his total earnings from that endorsement are estimated to be over $200 million.
More than he made boxing.
Way more than he made from boxing. It's just incredible.
That's a knockout punch in the business world.
A total knockout, and on a personal note, Foreman was married 5 times.
5 times.
5 times, and he had 12 children.
Wow.
5 sons, all named George Edward Foreman.
Wait, all named George.
All named George.
What?
He said he did it so they would always have something in common and that they would either rise or fall together.
Huh.
Unique parenting philosophy, for sure.
Definitely.
And one of his daughters, Frida, actually had a brief professional boxing career herself.
Oh.
Sadly, she passed away in 2019.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, in 2013, in recognition of his patriotism and all of his community service, he receives the American Legion's Good Guy Award.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, a fitting tribute to the man he became. Now, before we wrap things up, we got to talk about what Muhammad Ali thought about fighting Foreman.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
So the YouTube transcripts you found, they really captured Ali in his element. He's full of confidence, bravado, and just witty put-downs. He famously dismisses Foreman as being, quote, too slow. And he says, quote, hitting hard means nothing if you can't find under here.
Classic Ali.
Totally. And he believed that Frazier and Norton were afraid of Foreman, and they didn't use the right strategies to wear him down.
Interesting.
Yeah. And he really emphasized his own speed. He said, quote, am I fast? I hit you before God get the news.
Oh, man, he was so good.
He was the best. And he confidently predicted that Foreman would struggle in the later rounds because he wasn't used to fights going that long. He said, quote, it'd be strange to him hear the man say round 9, round 11.
And he was right.
He was right. So to sum it all up, George Foreman's life was anything but ordinary. He went from a troubled youth to an Olympic hero, a fearsome world champion, then a man of God, and then makes this incredible comeback to reclaim the title, and then finds massive success as an entrepreneur. His recent passing really marks the end of an era.
What a life.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating is all the little things we learned about him, his early life as a mugger, the intensity of his sparring sessions with Sonny Liston, his really powerful religious conversion, his unusual decision to name all his sons George, and then, of course, the fortune he made from a grill. It just goes to show you never really know what life has in store.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for you, our listener, we hope this deep dive gave you those quick but thorough insights that you crave, those aha moments, and a better understanding of the man behind the legend and the grill.
So as we wrap things up, I'm left with a question.
Okay.
Considering all the different sides of George Foreman, the boxer, the minister, the pitchman, the father of 12, what do you think will be the most enduring aspect of his legacy? And how might his story continue to inspire in the years to come? It's something to think about maybe while grilling up a delicious meal on your George Foreman grill.
Well said. I think we're going to leave it right there. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the life and legacy of George Foreman.
It was a good one.
It was a good one. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a fascinating subject.
See you then.